Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 4. My first time playing a campaign here on Civil War II. If you didn't see the first 3 episodes, there is a link in the description that will take you back to episode 1. It's early October 1861. We are still just diving into this. Thank you again for all of the fantastic feedback. You are helping me so much. What began as feeling like an overwhelmingly daunting task is starting to feel somewhat manageable, though I know we are far from even really getting into the real meat of this game. So one of the things that everybody pointed out here is that the reason that George McClellan is showing as locked is because he's got one unit, the Cincinnati Militia, that is locked. You remove that unit and McClellan is no longer locked. So that said, we still probably want to use him for training, and then we can just move out the rest of these units and start taking advantage of using them. I'm assuming that this little thing right here on the top left is where we see how much training they have. I'm not entirely sure of that yet, but I believe that's the case. And I think someone said that one of the ways you can tell whether or not a unit's been trained up is the number of men it has. So, for example, here, the 8th Ohio Volunteers, they have a max now of 600 men, whereas some of these others only have a max. Well, actually, these ones got 600 too, but they're still kind of getting up to that. So here, the Illinois Rifles only have 450. I don't know if that's entirely the case. You guys can point that out to me if that's the case, but I believe it is. So I've been talking about moving in to Lexington. I think we're going to go ahead and do that, and we will take Ambrose Burnside's unit, which doesn't have a lot of power. He's got just 4 brigades, but I think it'll still be a good start to get our first movement into Kentucky. Now, it says it's going to take 36 days. I feel like if I take rail movement instead, this will go a lot faster. So let's go ahead and see the difference if we move by rail. Okay, now it only takes 5 days if we take rail to get there. Big, big difference. And we've got the rail power to do that. We've still got 193 available. I'm going to start consolidating some forces under General Grant here, and you can see his perks. He's a gifted commander, level 1. He gets a +1 command point and an additional +1 per ability level to the stack under his command. If in command of an army, subordinate corps also receive this bonus. This ability applies if the leader is in command of the stack. So we will see who else we can add. I don't think we have a lot of other troops that are available in here right now. We don't. So we're going to start consolidating some forces down here under Grant. We'll go ahead and... Actually, Nathaniel Lyon, I think I'm going to keep right where he is for now. So I've got a small detachment here that was under Henry Halleck. It's got the 1st Missouri Brigade, which is a conscript unit, so it's not real great. It's got some cavalry and then some supply. We're going to go ahead and send that detachment down and merge them with Grant's unit. It's going to take them 22 days, again, unless we use rail, in which case it's only 6 days. So we're going to use rail as much as humanly possible, at least till I run out of rail, but I don't think I'm doing enough movement that that'll be an issue. We've still got 178 left. So I'm looking at the available options. I want to form an army, but I don't have the required units. We're going to enable divisional command for Grant. And then from there, I guess we don't have the requisite units to actually form an army, so I'll have to figure out exactly how we go about doing that. Oh, we need a general with at least 3 stars to be able to form an army, so we don't have that quite yet. We need to rebuild the rail that was torn up here in southwest Pennsylvania, so we'll go ahead and issue that order there for these troops. And it looks like, at least for now, everything's solid down here in West Virginia. We do have these guys here to deal with. We've also got Howe's force that's going to want to take on the 15th Virginia Cavalry. They already fought once, but let's just go ahead and turn this on to an attack movement here. And then I think we'll take this detachment here, move them down and merge them with these guys. It's going to take them a while to get there, but there's no rail to do that, so that's not going to happen. 10th Ohio Cav, I think we'll keep tight, keep them right where they are for now. I'm not sure we're going to move the Parkersburg Garrison or Milroy's Brigade, any of these guys here. Let's go ahead and merge these two together. We got to get a commander out that way to help out. Out west, we'll see if we can retake this fort that has been taken from us. We could probably send these dragoons as well. I'm actually going to send the Dragoons a little further west because you can see there's this Confederate force over here, making me a little nervous. So let's go ahead and send these Dragoons out here to Stafford. It's going to take them a while to get there, 47 days in fact, but that's just the size of the territory that we're dealing with out here. We have some locked units way out west and some Native American units that we've got to be concerned about, but not a whole lot going out there at the moment. So this is a decent sized force right here in Posey, Indiana. Actually, I used to live there for a while, right in this area. So I'm going to send a commander out there to take charge of that force, and that's really going to kind of be my main defensive force in this area to counter any potential moves I see by the Confederates while our main armies kind of move elsewhere. For the first time, we have monitors available. It's early October 1861, so we can start building those. River ironclads as well. A lot of folks said, hey, don't worry too much about such things, but I'll probably at some point want to at least recruit some of those. We've also got coastal artillery available to us. But once again, I have a lot of concern about making sure that I have enough troops available. So we're going to keep on recruiting, building up the army as much as possible. All right, there's a little combat action out in the west. Looks like the Confederates have done some moving. Had a lot of units converging into Kentucky, but no other major fighting took place on that turn. To reward McClellan's efforts for reorganizing the Army, Lincoln appoints him Army Commander of the Army of the Potomac. Until then, the 3 U.S. armies in the East operated independently. So, okay, so does that mean McClellan's out here now? Because we've still got Irvin McDowell in charge of the Army. I guess maybe that's something I have to move him by myself. I guess we'll see. So let's see what else happened here. Erickson Folly. Okay, there's the monitor. The Confederate decision to transform the captured frigate USS Merrimack into an ironclad ship drives the U.S. Navy to build a new type of warship to face this new threat. John Erickson's project is chosen among 17 others. The USS Monitor, quicker to build than its competitor, is described as a cheese box on a raft, consisting of a heavy round turret on the deck housing 2 large Dahlgren cannon. The armored deck is barely above the waterline. Pretty cool looking ship. So out in Farnham, Kansas, we had the Battle of Fort Scott. It did not go well. We're a little outnumbered. We're going to have to send somebody out there to take command of that unit and consolidate some of these forces. We're going to have to deal with these guys somehow. And then our other combat took place in Barbersville, Kentucky. Only 30 men, which looks like Barbersville, actually, is that West Virginia? We wiped out the 15th Virginia Cavalry. It's been destroyed. They only had 30 men left after the previous fighting. Didn't lose a man. So that's some good news. Yeah, that happened up here in West Virginia. So we've kind of dealt with the lone Confederate unit that was in this area. I feel like we'll probably be able to drive into West Virginia with little problem. I'm probably going to have to either clear that or put a supply depot or something. Let's take a look at the supply situation. Yeah, it's not real great in Charleston, but we do have a supply depot up here in Morgantown, so, and another one in Ashland, Kentucky, so that's not too bad. Okay, so they've made McClellan a 3-star, which allows him to form an army. Rather than sending him east, we're going to keep him right here in kind of the central area, and we'll form an army with him, and then we'll make the other army with Grant when we're able to do that. We're not able to do that yet. He's at 2 stars right now, and I don't think we have the ability to promote him. That's weird. I thought I enabled division command already for Grant. Not sure why I have to do that again, but we're going to send McClellan down to, well, first we're going to form an army with him. And then we're going to send him down to merge with the unit under General Burnside. And we're going to do that by rail, if at all possible. Get him there in 3 days. That'll be a substantial little force there. Historically, the Union did have a number of armies operating out here. Primarily, you had the Army of the Ohio and the Army of the Cumberland, which kind of converged at the Battle of Shiloh, which was down here in this area after Grant took Fort Henry and Fort Donelson on the river. And then eventually you had the Army of the Tennessee as well. The Union Army, by 1862 at least, was primarily naming their armies after rivers. The Confederates were doing it by regions or by states. So you had the Union Army of the Tennessee, and you had the Confederate Army of Tennessee. Same thing they did with naming the battles. The Confederates tended to name battles after the places, the village, the town. Union by body of water. So the Battle of Bull Run for the Union was the Battle of Manassas for the Confederates. Occasionally, they were the same, like the Battle of Gettysburg, but Stones River and Murfreesboro, Antietam and Sharpsburg, same battle, same kind of thing. All right, so we're going to start moving these guys down now that they repaired the rail. We're going to hold Mansfield right where he is for now. And I think we'll start thinking about a move toward Charleston in West Virginia. I don't know if we'll send Shields' force to do that. Let's get Milroy's brigade out of here because the Parkersburg garrison is just kind of sitting tight. We'll send Milroy's brigade down toward Charleston while we simultaneously move Shields' force that way. It's going to take them almost a month to get there. That's moving through the West Virginia mountains, man. There's nothing you can do about that. So the Confederates continue to cut a swath right up in, they're almost into Iowa. They actually are in Iowa now. So you can see where these areas have been pillaged. I don't know if we have any units available to us up here yet. Doesn't appear that we do. We're still trying to recruit some of those. So that's kind of cool. Over here on the left now, we can see the armies. I didn't realize that those army tabs would be there. So that's really cool that you can kind of click on those easily. Yeah, so we're going to have to deal with that Confederate unit. He's just kind of doing like a Morgan-style raid, only up into Iowa. But I don't think I've got any cavalry nearby that I can send up to deal with them. So we're going to try to take some of the pressure off some of these other areas by starting to move down into the southern part of Missouri. So I'm going to send this Lexington force down here. It's going to take a while to get there. I still don't have enough troops out in this area. I definitely feel like I'm going to need more. Looking down at some of the battles, retreats, and sieges from the last turn, you can see we're besieging Metropolis. That's out in Illinois. That's these areas that we need to take back. Fort Belmont, same deal. Over here in Kansas, that's right down. That's up here. That's where we're trying to deal with that. So actually, I should keep the 10th Kansas Cavalry where they're at. Oh, I've got the Kansas Reaction Force staying there, so that'll work for that. We also took 400 prisoners, captured 200 rifles. That's all from the fight in Barbersville. Let's see, we made a breach in Harper's Ferry. What else do we have going on? So we've trained a bunch more units. We're going to have to go get them going in the field. Finished building ironworks in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, Suffolk, Massachusetts, Providence, Rhode Island, an armory in New London, Connecticut. Armories all over the place in Connecticut, which is good. We're going to need those. Over here in Northeast Virginia, there's actually a Confederate unit that has moved into our territory. So I'm actually going to put myself on an offensive posture so that we will attack anybody that enters this region. I feel like we've got the strength to be able to do that with McDowell's force, especially as we've got continual reinforcements coming this way. I'm a little more concerned about the Army of the Shenandoah, the Confederates up here. They've got a pretty powerful army that I really don't have the ability to counter at the moment. Hey, there's the Excelsior Brigade in New York City. The Excelsior Brigade was raised by Dan Sickles, and that's how he got his command. He had been a congressman before the war, and many of you already know this story, but Dan Sickles before the war was best known as the guy who shot and killed his wife's lover, a man named Philip Barton Key, who was the son of Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. Key was stupidly hanging right outside Sickles' house and kind of trying to get his wife's attention so she would come out to him. And so Sickles just grabbed his gun, went out and shot him. And he shot him like a block from the White House. and I believe he did it right in front of the D.C. District Attorney's office or something like that. And it was just a mess. And he actually was found not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. It was the very first time anybody successfully used that defense. Dan Sickles was quite an interesting guy, to say the least. We do have the U.S. Atlantic Fleet under David Farragut ready to go here in New York, so I think we might go ahead and take them out for a spin. We're going to look at where we might want to send them, but I'm feeling like it's going to be somewhere over here. We've got the Gulf blockade going on over there, but there's not a lot that we're doing with it so far. Where is New Orleans? Oh, we're past it. We're down on the coast of Texas now. New Orleans is up here. So we're going to send them. I don't know how this is going to work with supply and such, but I think we're going to send the Atlantic Fleet right here to the head of the Mississippi for now. It's going to take them 21 days to get there. And we'll see what we can do. Also here. Okay, so those are other units that are also there. I think some of these other units we're going to go ahead and send to help out with the blockade. All right, we're ordering up some Wisconsin and Iowa cavalry units. Obviously, those are going to take a little while to get raised, but once they do, that's going to give me some mobility up here to go ahead and deal with this guy. Okay, major battle taking place here. Johnston has attacked me at Harper's Ferry. I obviously do not have the manpower to hold him off. I'm just really concerned that this turns into a bloodbath and I end up losing a lot of men, but we're going to wait and see what happens. You can see right now that's the case. I'm losing a lot of men. Thankfully, it didn't get any worse than that, but he did take Harper's Ferry from me. I think that's all that's going to happen for now. That unit up in Iowa came back down. All right, there was a lot that took place there as we get into November. So let's look at the major things that happened. Here's the Van Wyck report. December 1861, the House Committee on Government Contracts, also known as the Van Wyck Committee, issued its report. The report exposes the fact that Secretary of War Simon Cameron, he got fired soon after, and the Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles had both bypassed existing military procurement bureaus and appointed special procurement agents who had accumulated astonishing commissions from the war contracts. So yeah, anytime you have that kind of money flying around, there's government corruption, unfortunately. Major General Winfield Scott was General-in-Chief at the beginning of the Civil War. He held this position until November 1st when he resigned under political pressure. All right, little battle, skirmish in Quincy, Illinois against Howard's Rangers. We took care of business there. Here's the big one that happened out in Harper's Ferry. Could have been a lot worse. Could definitely have been a lot worse. We lost 1,500 men to his 900. Obviously, he greatly outnumbered us there. You can see the numbers. Honestly, I'm surprised it wasn't worse than that, considering. So that was a defeat, but now we can kind of consolidate our forces over here in Loudoun County, Virginia, and hopefully make a move on Harper's Ferry and eventually take it back. We continue to build up our army here. He pulled those forces back and consolidated them with the Army of the Potomac under Beauregard. Okay, so we managed to take Fort Scott out in Kansas. Got that back. That was good news. I'm looking to see what else may be happening here. Fort Monroe bombarded a fleet. Obviously, we lost the battle at Harper's Ferry. Otherwise, just a lot of new units, a lot of ironworks and armories have been completed. So not a lot else going on at the moment. We just got to get everything kind of pushed down into our armies. We're starting to build up Grant's army a little bit. You can see that here, although he doesn't actually have an army, so to speak. Let's go ahead and look over here at McClellan's force in Kentucky that we're starting to build up. We can't actually move them anywhere yet, but I'm building them up in anticipation that in the spring I'm going to be able to move them into eastern Tennessee, kind of take them down toward Chattanooga, and eventually maybe even threaten Atlanta if we get really lucky. So I have the ability right now to allow intervention in Kentucky, which may not be the worst idea in the world. The government has decided to allow Union forces to go through Kentucky despite the state's neutrality. The measure enrages Kentuckians and strongly affected the nation as a violation of state sovereignty by the federal government. European powers are shocked by the action and encourage Confederate reaction. Such a measure can only be taken once. So it'll cost me 30 victory points and 5 morale, but I feel like I am ready to do that, and he's not, and I've got a force there, so I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on that. With that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start building up some supply units that we will attach to this force in Lexington, because there will be no supply happening once we actually move into these regions of Kentucky and try to push south. That might not be an easy way to do this. All right, we've got ourselves a little bit of a fight out in central Missouri, and it looks like it went pretty well for me. I had the numbers, but I guess we'll see how things ended up overall. We're into late November now. So the Trent Affair. Confederate President Jefferson Davis, seeking support against the North, sent diplomats James Mason of Virginia as minister to Britain and John Slidell of Louisiana as minister to France. Eluding the Union blockade, the Southerners reached Cuba, where they boarded a British mail steamer, the Trent, for passage across the Atlantic Ocean. On November 8th, 1861, the USS San Jacinto halted the Trent 300 miles east of Havana with 2 shots across the bow. A boarding party from the San Jacinto seized the Confederate diplomats and their secretaries by force, but then allowed the Trent to resume its voyage. This decision became a source of controversy, with the British claiming that the San Jacinto had violated international law by removing persons from a ship without taking the ship to a prize court for adjudication. The Trent arrived in England on 27 November, but Lord Russell, the British Foreign Secretary, informed Lord Lyons, Minister to the United States, that the affair was considered an aggression against England, and an ultimatum was sent on 19 December. So that obviously moves us a little closer to foreign entry, which is still at minus 6%, so nothing major to worry about. The YMCA organized the U.S. Christian Commission to serve the federal troops by providing nurses for war hospitals. Nothing major to read about there. Capitol defenses beefed up. By the end of the war, Washington, D.C. was the most fortified city on Earth. Unhistorical for game balance, units are locked there for 60 turns, 2.5 years, after which they'll be free to move. Basically, that's to kind of set it to where it was in the spring of 1864 that Grant removed a lot of those units from the defenses around Washington and put them into his army for the march south. So it's kind of meant to tie into that, I guess. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the combat results from the fight, the Battle of Vienna, Missouri. Looks like it went pretty well. Oh, actually, it's shown as a defeat. So we lost 215 men. They didn't lose a man. Jeez, well, that's a little frustrating. That's okay, though. I guess we're going to have to pull these guys back. Man, I didn't expect that to go so badly. We don't have a lot of forces out there either. Now we've got this unit moving up toward Lexington. We've got a unit up here. This is that force that's just been riding roughshod through everything. So we've got to beef up our western units in the worst way. So we're going to have to start shifting some units out that way, I guess. So now you can see that all of Kentucky is available to me as far as movement goes. Where... There they are. They weren't showing up for a minute. I wondered where my Kentucky department is right here. So we're actually going to, I think, start merging some of these other units into the Kentucky department, the ones that are available to anyway. So McClellan's got a decent-sized force. The problem is, of course, that I'm worried about supply. Let's take a look right now. Oh, okay. Now that we've actually opened up Kentucky, now all of Kentucky is available within our region of supply, so I'm not as worried about all those supply trains that I started building up. I guess that's not really necessary, at least at the moment. So we're going to go ahead, and even though it's late November, maybe this is not the time to do it. Maybe we need to wait till spring to actually make this offensive happen. And maybe the thing we want to do is actually move these guys by rail. All the rails are torn up down here. Oh, boy. We might move them by rail over to this area here, and then we can move them down maybe toward Nashville. So maybe that's what we'll do. We're going to have to get some forces going here. We're going to, I think, let's see here. Okay, so General Griffin arrived. So now we've got Griffin's force. We're going to go ahead and put them on an offensive footing. We're not going to be able to do a whole lot more fighting as we get into winter, but we're going to go ahead and cross over into Kentucky. And then we're going to go ahead and we've got a decent sized force here too. Let's merge them into the Kentucky Department. That gives us 821 for power. Do I have any? I'm wondering if I have any units that I could send ahead to start dealing with the rail. But I guess for now what we'll do is we'll just move by rail as far as we can go, which would be to probably here. No, maybe not. We can only move by rail to there. So we're going to go ahead and move here, and then we're going to have to start repairing the rails so that we can move reinforcements in faster. We're going to move toward Warren, Kentucky, with the idea that in the spring we will go after Nashville. So that's the idea there. I don't think we're going to do a whole lot more on this episode. The next episode or two is going to be where things really start happening. You can see here that we've begun besieging Charleston, West Virginia. We're going to be bringing some reinforcements to help with that here fairly soon. Let's go ahead and put these guys on offensive footing as well. I want to start turning some of these areas in my favor. You can see there's a lot fewer units kind of out and about now as we start consolidating some of these forces. He just consolidated, it seems, some of his forces from Harper's Ferry into this unit here. So I think for now we're going to kind of hang tight with Irvin McDowell. We'll try to get him some more reinforcements, but it might be time to move out with Milroy's detachment against these. So we're going to go ahead and attack these guys for now, but I think we're going to probably make another move against Harper's Ferry here soon. So we've got a bunch of units available here in Orange County, New York. I'm going to go ahead and merge all of them together just to make it a little easier to manage them. And then we're going to move the whole force by rail. We've got one that isn't available yet, so let's pull them out. We'll move the rest of this Union force by rail down to merge with the Army in Virginia. So I see the Confederates have once again moved up into Pennsylvania. They just seem to love going there. So we're going to have to go up and deal with them one more time. And that means moving out of Morgantown, West Virginia, and up into this area here. We've got additional forces, the Pittsburgh Garrison, Hancock's Brigade. So we've got some units here that we can move down as well. No commander to speak of, but that's okay. They're still going to be able to overwhelm these guys. In fact, I can probably use them instead of these guys, so I'll just go ahead and cancel. So I've been taking probably the last 10 to 15 minutes off screen just issuing move orders to a massive amount of reinforcements. That what I've discovered is, and I didn't realize this before, that right now you can see all these units on the map. Not all of my units actually show up. A lot of them, they only show up when you click on the location where their unit is. So right there, you see that's a perfect example of that. So what I've been doing is you can press the R button to cycle through all of your units. So I've spent the last 10 to 15 minutes cycling through all of these units and issuing a ton of move orders. So over the next couple of weeks in the game, there are going to be massive amounts of units moving and reinforcing a bunch of my cities. You can see here Sioux City, Iowa. I've got a force there now, including a General Edwin Sumner. So we're going to be able to move that force down. We're going to come right down the river here toward Missouri with this force. We're going to start trying to reinforce some of these areas that I'm concerned about. I've got a ton of movement by rail happening. I'm almost out of rail capacity because I've been moving so many units by rail. Here's another unit of artillery. I'm just showing you a few of these things. You can see all the lines from all the movements that are happening. We're going to be reinforcing primarily Grant's force, McClellan's force, and then the two forces out here in the east, but a lot of the smaller ones as well. All right, major combat happening, and it's going to go really well for me. 25,000, almost 26,000 men against a really small Confederate force in Northern Virginia. So we'll see how that ends up, but it's obviously just a matter of time there. Oh, he moved a little bit bigger force in, but that's also going to meet with a similar fate, so that's good news. It looks like he actually pulled Johnston out. He's pulled him back into the Shenandoah Valley. That might open the door for me to move, but honestly, as we get into the winter, I don't feel inclined to do that. He moved him up to Harper's Ferry. Okay, so not a lot as far as combat goes. General Bernard B., who was actually famously killed at First Bull Run, he was the one who gave Stonewall Jackson and his brigade the nickname Stonewall. Battle of Leesburg, which is where an actual battle happened in 1861, but a lot earlier in the war. Actually, it was Ball's Bluff, which is near Leesburg. So you can see the Excelsior Brigade into combat for the first time, the Philadelphia Brigade, and many others as well. And that one went really well for us. We inflicted about 10% casualties on Bernard B. and lost fewer than that. We lost more men, but fewer in terms of percentage. And then Milroy here against Huger, again, a victory. So 2 victories that took place in the same spot there. Berdan's on his way, so we're going to have our sharpshooters there. We got a little force over here in Frederick. But like I said, this is interesting because now they're not there anymore. But I think we're going to wrap it up right there, and we'll pick up with this turn next time. As always, please let me know your thoughts. I've already learned so much from you, and I feel like the key to my success in this campaign is going to be your continued input into what you see me doing and what you see me failing to do. So point that out, use the comment section below, and we'll be back with another episode in the next couple of days. Thanks for watching.